Hello everybody and welcome to this, another edition of a late night screen review. This week we're talking about 28 years later! 28 years? Wow, that's a long time.
Seven, 6, 11, 5, 9 and 20 miles today, 4, 11, 17, 32 the day before. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. Men go mad with watching them. There's no discharge in the war.
28 years later is directed by Danny Boyle and is out in all major theatres in the UK as of yesterday? The day before yesterday. The late night screen review is a little bit late, folks. Apologies. So what's the story? So, 28 years later tells the story of Spike, a young boy just coming of age in a little village that's isolated from the mainland in the UK as the zombie apocalypse rages and has been raging for the last nearly 30 years now. So he's in a little commune, they are farmers, they are self-sustaining. They are kind of like this weird kind of like, you know, almost like a semi-communistic place because they all get assigned specific jobs and it's all for the greater good and for everybody and the people, etc, etc, etc. So there's all that. The dad is a hunter. He goes out with a bow and arrow and hunts and often goes to the mainland to hunt zombies. Why? I don't know. And this story takes up where it's sort of Spike's coming of age day. He's 12 years old and it's time for him to go to his first hunt out on the mainland. His father takes him and horror ensues. So what did I think of the movie? So here's the thing, folks. What did I think of the movie? I had an emotional roller coaster of a time leading up to this film. I'd obviously watched the trailer, especially the first trailer, which I thought was absolutely excellent. It was very kind of like, you know, blood pumping. It got you questioning what's going to happen. What's this film about? It was quite, you know, dramatic and quite, you know, thrilling. All the things that a good trailer should be. It's obviously 28 days later. I mean, again, one of the most seminal kind of British horror films to come out of Britain in the last, you know, 25 years almost. And at that time, it was the resurgence of the zombie flick and the kind of new age, the kind of second era of the zombie flick. You know, we had the 70s and 80s with the George A. Romero, etc., etc. And then kind of Danny Boyle kind of brought it to the forefront with 28 Days Later. Then there was also the remake of Dawn of the Dead, which I liked, but I didn't love. And then we had Shaun of the Dead, which was like a massive success again within Britain. So this was very much a Britain-owned horror flick, and it was a huge, you know, success and a very much independent movie at the time. If you were there at the beginning when it was first released, it was, you know, one of the first digital films ever made. And I rewatched 28 Days Later the other day, leading up to 28 years later, and yeah, I forgot how low budget and independent it was. Awesome. So what did I think of this new movie? Well, when I first came out of the cinema, I'm going to be honest, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I came out and I was buzzing. I went through an emotional roller coaster with the film. After thinking about it for a couple of days, and this is the reason why this is late, this review, because usually I do a review almost instantaneously, but I had to think about this one for a little while. You see, I'm a big horror fan from the old school days. I love Lucio Fulci movies, those cheesy 70s exploitation zombie movies. I also love George A. Romero movies. I have been watching those ever since I was like 8, 9 years old. Way too old to watch those films. So I'm kind of old school, way back when, big horror fan, big zombie horror fan. And then the resurgence came, 28 Days Later, came out of nowhere seemingly. Shaun of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead remake, and it was like, right, now everybody's getting into zombie movies. And hey, here's The Walking Dead, the comic book series. I collected it from issue 1. I have the very first issue, and I've collected it for hundreds and hundreds of issues. Then the TV series, then Z Nation, the TV series, then most recently The Last of Us TV series. And to be honest, right now, I'm a bit zombied out. I'm a bit zombie post-apocalypse zombied out. Like, I had no interest in seeing another zombie apocalypse movie. And so that was my attitude going in. I was not in the mood for this movie. And I think I was pleasantly surprised at the time after seeing the movie. I came out and I was buzzing. I thought, you know what? I enjoyed it. Why? Well, because it wasn't this huge, sweeping, global zombie apocalypse movie. It wasn't The Walking Dead or The Last of Us. It was a lot more of an intimate story about a family and about a child coming of age, basically realizing that his parents aren't these heroes that they're built up to be, almost literally with Spike's father, who's literally like the town hero because he does all the zombie hunting. Our parents are fallible and they're just like you and me, and they make mistakes and they're good and bad in equal measure and they have their flaws and yada yada yada. And that's what this movie is. If you haven't seen it already, it's a very intimate, small story set in a bigger, wider world. And I liked that. And the acting across the board is absolutely fantastic. Some of the cinematography's not that great. The score's very interesting and very well provoked. Some of the editing and editing choices are interesting. Not always good, but at least interesting. And Danny Boyle's doing something and he's got some ideas. You know, I didn't like the kind of isolationist, as I say, communistic kind of thing that was kind of portrayed throughout. That's not really my bag. I don't really enjoy that kind of cinema. I don't like over-politicized cinema. There did feel undertones of that, and then subsequently Danny Boyle has said that yes, you know, the movie is basically about Brexit and things like that, which, you know, politics has its place, but for me, I just want to watch a good movie, and if there's some, you know, social critique, etc., then fine, but I don't want a movie to be a complete allegory about a current political statement and things like that. Like, I'm not that interested. That's just me, that's just my personal opinion. So I didn't like that. And I also didn't like the kind of ending of the movie because it kind of comes out of nowhere and it's a complete tonal shift for no real good reason. And at first I thought it was cool and funny, and then I thought about it and I was like, and then I rewatched 28 Days Later, and I thought, wow, this really isn't in the same universe. What the hell was Danny Boyle thinking with the ending? It comes completely out of nowhere. So I didn't like that. When I analysed the story, when I actually thought about what have I just seen in terms of a story, I actually thought about it for a while and thought, there isn't much of a story here. Like, other than the child kind of coming of age and kind of realising that his parents aren't all he thought they were, and that the world wasn't all that he thought it was, which is kind of just a very stereotypical family drama. I mean, if not for the zombie apocalypse, it isn't much of a story. And the characters don't really grow that much or change, or there's no real outcome or anything. And so you're just left a bit, huh. Danny Boyle does portray humanity in, you know, again, in its starkness and its kind of reality and good, bad, all the grey areas in between. But there is a kind of positive theme, I guess, through the movie, but the film doesn't end on that note. It starts off positive and then ends quite downbeat, or just the characters haven't grown or gone anywhere. They've kind of stagnated or maybe regressed slightly. So the film almost made you, it kind of almost punished you for enjoying the characters for a certain amount of time. So it's like, here's the good side of humanity, but kind of doesn't get you anywhere, or it's not all it's meant to be, or something. I think the messaging behind the film and the slight politics behind the film is quite confused, and and as I thought about it, I thought actually there wasn't much story here, and I almost feel like Danny Boyle has slipped a little bit as a filmmaker, as I think that everybody does when they've been in a certain industry for a certain length of time. Whether you're a banker or a filmmaker or a teacher, you only have so many good years left. And I think that Danny Boyle's kind of reached his kind of end game, maybe just with this universe, but I don't particularly want to see a sequel to this movie. So as I thought about it, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the intimate, small kind of story, but ultimately there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone, if you forgive the pun, and I came away feeling quite, after I thought about it for a couple of times, I came away thinking, oh, I actually think I didn't like the movie as much as I thought. The acting's great. Some of the messaging is fine, but some of it's kind of ham-fisted. or just unnecessary, and it's kind of in replacement of an actual story, of actual character development and growth, because in this movie there isn't much story and there isn't much character growth. Some of the dialogue's also a bit stilted and strange, but it was kind of like that in the original 28 Days Later, to be fair. But the 28 Days Later had a kind of the excuse of it being like an independent, low-budget, guerrilla-made movie and one of the first films, so you give it that kind of excuse, whereas this one isn't. It's a bigger budget Hollywood type movie, and it almost feels like Danny Boyle's not really learned anything new for me. If it wasn't a third in this series, if it was just a sequel, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's a reasonable sequel. But because it's a third in this series, I don't think it is as good as the first two. And I think if you really want something new, or a big story, or character development, or you want to like really care about characters, blah blah blah, I think you're going to find this film wanting outside of the actor's really good performance. There's not a lot of story, there's not a lot of meat on the bones, but what you get is good and it's fine. I liked the movie. At first, as I say, I came away thought it was great, but as I thought about it more and I rewatched the original, how great the original was for the low budget and the various other, you know, low effects and things, and then to see this movie, it's like, oh wow, like actually the first one was doing so much more with so much less, and this one is doing a lot less with a lot more. So it's a good film. I enjoyed it. There's lots of things that are negative and kind of flaws and things that I didn't like, but there was enough good stuff here for me to enjoy the film. As I say, the acting, cinematography, some of the soundtrack is great. There's just not a lot else, ultimately. And the film kind of shifts in tone all over the place and shifts its perspective on what it's trying to say, what the messaging is of the movie. And I think it gets itself a little bit confused. So it makes me feel that Danny Boyle kind of maybe needs to not make another movie. And perhaps I'm not that interested in seeing any more 28 Days Later movies. I'm kind of done with this universe. I'd much rather put George A. Romero's Day of the Dead on and just watch something that's at least fun to watch. So it's an okay film. I thought it was good. If you're a massive fan of this genre, go see the movie. If you're a massive fan of 28 Days Later, you're not going to be horribly disappointed. You might just come away like me, having to think about it and go, actually, it's a bit up and down, essentially. So it's kind of a mid-review, but if you're a zombie fan, you're going to go see it and probably have a reasonable time. If not, like, really love it. I'm just a bit too fussy, I guess, when it comes to my zombie movies. But I'm an old school guy, and I you know, a lot of this genre is really personal for me, really, really close to the heart. So it's okay. That's my review of 28 Years Later. So until next time, guys, stay safe, stay scared, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.